Hello and welcome to NRL 360 Rugby League from every angle. Let's get straight to tonight's Telstra top story. Reece Walsh is set to join the Broncos according to reports from the Daily Telegraph's Michael Carianis. It comes after the news earlier tonight that Canberra's Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad will leave the Raiders to join the Warriors. This is big news. Let's get in James Hooper, Paul Corley, of course, Paul Kent. Now, Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad has apparently agreed to terms with the Warriors after the Raiders, which then opens the door for Reece Walsh to move from the Warriors and apparently to the Broncos. This is massive breaking news.
Yeah, look, it's all sort of happening as we speak, both. I've got this, it's only just been released a minute ago on the Telegraph website. Now, Nicoll-Klokstad has told the Raiders today, his teammates, that he's returning to the Warriors next year. But the story's sort of been told in reverse because we understand that the reason is because Reece Walsh is about to agree to terms with the Broncos and essentially will end up there next year. So the Warriors have then gone looking for a fullback and they've gone after Nicoll-Klokstad, who looks like it's all been granted from that point of view, which means Walsh will be released next year. And obviously the other part to it is that the Dolphins were in heavy for Reece Walsh. Look, it's not over yet. He has not signed. He has not agreed to any terms with the Broncos. But certainly that's the conversation going on.
If that happens, that's a massive win for the Broncos against the Dolphins.
It is.
Yeah.
Because he is a player that the Dolphins wanted.
Yes.
And wanted badly.
And thought they'd had. They thought they would get.
And if he goes to the Broncos, it's a huge win for them as a club.
Yeah.
Because that's a pivotal position that they need to strengthen.
What have you heard?
What's an even bigger coup for the Broncos is when Reece Walsh left there, it got a little bit ugly, didn't it? Like he wanted to go to the Warriors because there was an opportunity to play in the NRL, but he felt as though he hadn't been given a fair pathway at the Broncos and wasn't going to get the same opportunities. But it just shows, bro,
Different
rugby
coach
league.
now.
No, I think Kevy was the coach, mate. Kevy was still the coach.
Yeah, I think
it just shows you rugby league never, ever sleeps. Like, there's an Origin game, there's a build-up to an Origin game on. It looks as though that Andrew Webster will get the job at the New Zealand Warriors by the end of the week. And now this is huge news because Reece Walsh, you add him to that Broncos team that's emerged this season as a side that's on the rise, and all of a sudden it takes some serious shape.
Further to that too, Selwyn Cobbo. A lot of people probably saw him as a future fullback at the Broncos.
That's a good point.
So what does that mean for him now? Because didn't he recently extend?
He has, because
the
the Roosters were in heavily for Selwyn and thought that they were very close to getting him. But Brisbane did a great job there. But it shows that he's now...
His future is not playing on the wing.
Yeah.
Call me a conspiracy theorist, that. Call me one. It's astute management to have it leak just before he actually signs or commits to the Broncos, given the Dolphins are so heavy after him.
The Dolphins will come back.
They've got to.
They can't
afford to lose him.
There was murmurs around that Reece wouldn't go to New Zealand. He wouldn't travel and he was going to leave, but the rumours were he's not going to go to Brisbane. He was going to go to the Dolphins. The Dolphins...
He's actually told people.
He has. The Dolphins are desperate for him. So, you've just spoken to officials at Brisbane. It's not official that he signed yet, but Michael Carianis is reporting he most likely will go to Brisbane. But I'm sure that at the 11th hour, the Dolphins will come in hard for Reece again. This may not be over.
Wayne's got to sharpen the pencil, and Peter O'Sullivan. They've got to come back in and whatever it takes to try and get this kid over the line, because in terms of key position players, that's the one area where they're still desperately
lacking. Is it whatever
lacking.
it takes, though, for Reece Walsh? Is he a
Jesus,
whatever
good
it
player,
takes?
no,
He's a very good player, but is he $1 million player?
I wouldn't pay that much.
So how much do you pay for a guy like him? Because whatever it takes can really screw up your salary
whatever
cap.
you pay for him, the Dolphins are pay more.
You pay
yes, I know that.
You pay
Paul.
100,000, 150 more than what the Broncos are paying per season.
If the Dolphins miss Reece, this is their biggest miss. This is their biggest miss in the last...
That's a big call.
Bigger than
They've had a
Brandon
few.
Smith.
They've had a few.
Brandon Smith,
Harry Brandon Smith.
This is the one they've wanted the
Tino.
most. They've had some big misses. I believe this is the one they wanted the most.
This is certainly the one they had most confidence of getting.
Yeah.
And it's a position that they need because they've got some strength in the forwards. They've got, there's all this talk about Munster potentially being there, if not in 23, 24. But you need more of these backs.
Poor old New Zealand losing Reece. Honestly, that's heartbreaking for them. They're trying to build their team. They've lost their coach. But their first week back in New Zealand, they win.
It's tough.
And then they lose their most promising, one of the most promising players in the game. This kid is a freak.
Well, the other interesting element of that as well, Braith, is that the bloke who signed Reece Walsh to go and play for the Warriors. Peter O'Sullivan is now the recruitment boss at the Dolphins. So those lines of communication are open. But you're right, in terms of the Warriors, it's a crushing blow. Because
They've got to get in the fight, the Warriors. They've got to get someone in there who understands the rugby league landscape.
Well, is Andrew Webster the right? Because that's the way the planets look as though they're going to
Andrew Webster's going to go there as a coach. They need a recruitment guy, and they need someone that's pretty sharp about what he does.
See, Paul, they've had in recent times O'Sullivan, who's near the top of the tree when it comes to recruitment bosses. They had Phil Gould at the club.
Yeah.
They've had people there that supposedly are top of the business in this, and it hasn't worked.
I'll tell you the flip
Then
side.
you've got a rookie coach now on the verge of agreeing to terms at that club, and who is going to hold his hand through this period where you've got to learn who's who in the zoo and how to conduct business to keep these players?
And the flip side is, so many junior players are getting pinched out of New Zealand at 16, 17 years of age, getting put into schools over here. They spend 2 or 3 years in the junior systems over here and come through as a North Queensland Cowboy or whoever, which is like they've got to stack them up there in Townsville. There are kids at both ends now. The Warriors are starting to lose players. They need to start really sort of reassessing how they're doing their business because they're losing them at the top end now. They've been losing them at the bottom end for years. There's not a lot coming through, which we all talk about the junior nursery over there and how big it should be. By the time they're getting play ready, they're already playing for
It's very hard to stop
an Australian-based
that, though,
club.
Paul. Like it's been happening for years, and it's not just North Queensland or other clubs like that. Like Dylan Brown at Parramatta came across as a schoolboy.
Sonny Bill Williams.
Sonny
you can go
Bill
back
Williams.
as far as Sonny Bill.
Yeah, but they've also got the same amount of money to spend as every NRL club. Every club's got a salary cap. Every club's got
If they've had people like Gus in these positions of prominence and power, if he can't get it right,
well, he was only there 5 minutes. With due respect,
well, let's go with Sully then. Peter O'Sullivan, been around the game forever, regarded as one of the best in the business. If he can't get it right, then who is going to get it right?
I don't know. I just think they've got to start finding ways to keep the kids in New Zealand. I know they can't keep them all, but there's one of the complaints that come out of New Zealand is that they're losing too many kids to Australian-based clubs at too young an age, and then they struggle. Dylan Brown, for example, they struggle to get them back. It's an issue for the club.
The other issue in this too is what is an NRL contract worth these days? Like seriously, like he's signed until the end of 23.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to be there, you don't have to be there.
Well, technically, the mail was long ago. As I said earlier, the mail long ago was that Reece was not going to be with New Zealand next year.
Technically, he was actually signed until the end of 2024 with the New Zealand Warriors. He had a get-out clause in the final year that if he hadn't acclimatised and he wasn't enjoying life in New Zealand, then he could go. But to answer your question, Cross, how long we've been doing this? Sadly, contracts aren't worth the paper that they're written on anymore. Those days are long gone when a handshake was your word.
But if both sides agree to terminate the contract, that's the way it works.
Play on. Let's switch focus now to Reece. You brought up a good point. You brought up a good point, Crawls, with Selwyn Cobbo. Congratulations, mate. With Selwyn Cobbo on the wing.
Got one.
With Selwyn Cobbo on the wing and potentially moving to fullback, he's just re-signed with the club.